You hear the first drop before you decide it is rain. A small tap on the roof, a second like it, then a pause that feels intentional, as if the sky were clearing its throat. The cadence gathers by degrees. What began as punctuation becomes a sentence, soft and continuous. You stay beneath the blanket and turn your head toward the window. Glass wears a dim sheen, quivering where each drop lands and spreads. Outside, leaves receive and answer. Pine makes a thin shimmer, oak a padded, drum, moss a hush. Together they form a pattern never the same twice, and always kind. Your brain prefers this sort of music. Random yet safe, it frees prediction from its post. With no sharp edges in the sound, the amygdala lowers its guard, and the parasympathetic tide comes in. Heart rate eases. Shoulders soften. You breathe with the weather rather than against it. Scientists call this broadband sound white or pink noise, depending on where energy gathers across frequencies. Rain leans toward the lower, steadier end, masking sudden spikes and quieting startle. Reflexes. You do not need the turns to receive the gift. The body listens, understands, and answers with ease. On the pain, drops behave like thoughts learning to let go. They gather, hesitate, merge without argument, and become something larger that moves on. Surface tension holds them briefly, like patience made visible. You follow a bead down the glass until it disappears into the frame. Air changes with weather. Petrichor minerals and plant oils woken by moisture reaches you in a faint, clean ribbon. Smell walks the short road to memory, and many evenings arrive at once. Porches under tin roofs, tents bright with a lantern, balconies where puddles stitched the city. You receive the feeling rather than the dates. The roof writes rhythms with brushes. Near the chimney the taps are quick and fine. Above the door, where a branch leans, the beat slows with leaf interference. Over the bedroom, the old tin section murmurs a deeper tone. Your ears make a map and relax into familiarity. Known patterns cost less to track. You open the curtain a finger's width. Pine bough bows under pearls. Needles hold bright beads. That jump when a gust laughs through. Variability without threat is a lullaby. Your heart adds playful grace notes to its rhythm, then settles into a slower song. The blanket presses a soft sentence across your ribs. The fire keeps an orange punctuation. Cool air near the window nudges your cheek, meets the pocket of heat under wool, and creates a border that feels especially kind. Thermoregulation choreographs comfort quietly. Vessels widen, evaporation. Slows, skin relearns the difference between chill and rest. You close your eyes and look at the darkness behind them. The leftover image of flame wavers. Rain lays a veil across it. Light and sound braid into one sensation. Warmth with texture. Your breathing matches their weave. 4 counts in, 6 counts out. The exhale lengthens vagal tone along a long river. Of nerves. Drops trace branching forms on the glass, little rivers seen from a small sky. Fractals please the visual system. It recognizes reuse of rules and saves effort. Saving effort is another word for ease. Looking turns to resting, then to drifting, as edges dissolve and only motion remains. A car passes far away and vanishes. Into the wash. The rain gently steals the sharpness from stray noises and returns them rounded. Even your own shift beneath the blanket becomes part of the room's song. Inclusion is its own comfort. You feel less like a separate listener and more like one instrument in weather's orchestra. Thunder speaks once in the distance. No drama, just a cupboard closing at the far end of the house. Curiosity rises and sits back down. The plot remains the same. Safe room, soft sound, slow body. You let your tongue fall from the roof of your mouth. The throat opens. Sleep's doorway widens. The blanket's weight makes breath deliberate in a comfortable way. as if you were operating bellows for an ember you intend to keep. The ember is you, held at a glow that asks for nothing but time. The window fogs slightly at its edge, where warm room meets cool pain. You draw a small circle with your fingertip and watch it blur. Circles within circles. Breaths, drops, barrels, clouds. Cycles soothe because they carry you back without scolding. This is what the rain is doing to thought returning. It is simple tracks. Another gust arrives, shakes a sprinkle from the pine, and then the air rests again. You picture the forest receiving each drop, needles combing water into lines, soil opening small mouths, roots tasting, trunks drawing upward by capillary faith. The system accepts without hurry. You learn acceptance by imitation. The brains. Networks behave differently as sleep approaches. The default mode quiets. Attention narrows kindly. Auditory cortex sinks to slower waves. You do not watch a graph. You feel the translation as gravity a little heavier and effort a little lighter. Drowsiness is the body winning an argument you are happy to lose. The roof syllables soften for a moment, then return, like a tide proving it can still reach shore. You use the pause to notice how entirely you are being carried. You are not. Making the rain, not managing it, not even interpreting it anymore. You are floating in it the way a leaf floats supported by a million small forces working together. You slide one hand from beneath the blanket and let it rest on the floor by the chair. Your fingers meet cloth, and then the edge of a cover linen, or cotton pleasantly cool. The book you set aside earlier has waited without impatience. Its ribbon marks a place the way a friend saves you a seat. You keep your eyes closed and feel the book through touch alone. Weight, corners, the slight give of the spine, a set of cues that tell the brain a story even before words arrive. Tactile. Memory joins auditory calm, and the two braid into an invitation. Outside, the barrel reaches a brim and begins to overflow in a whispering sheet. The change registers as new, but not alarming. Novelty that stays gentle is the mind's favorite kind at night. It keeps you present while letting you sink. You sink. Another slow roll of thunder murmurs like a distant door opening and closing. You wonder what it would be like to step for a moment onto the porch and feel cool drops on your face. Then you decide to remain where you are and imagine it instead. Imagination is the porch indoors. The rain shows no need to finish quickly. It will be here as long as it chooses, and you will be here as long as you need. Agreement feels like warmth. You drift nearer the hinge between waking and dream, that cold, narrow place where images begin to speak softly to themselves. A final bead slides down the pane in perfect focus. Then your vision loosens and the bead becomes a line, then a blur, then not even a blur, just part of the evening. The roof continues its counting in a language that measures by kindness rather than minutes. You listen without trying to listen. Your eyelids grow heavy, warm as stones sunlit, then cooled by evening rain. You welcome the drift. Now, when you open your eyes at last, it is only to confirm the book is truly there. The ribbon shows at the top like a quiet flag. You lift the volume onto your lap, press the blanket back around your waist, and rest your thumb at the chapter edge. Rain keeps time. Breath keeps company. The room waits, ready to turn a page. You ease the ribbon aside and let the paper breathe. Words begin to rustle like leaves under rain, promising the quietest conversation. You lean closer to the page, ready to hear the book whisper back. The rain has been falling long enough that its rhythm feels like your own. You don't remember exactly when the two began to match, but now as you listen, you find your breath moving in quiet agreement. The inhale rises with the steady patter on the roof. The exhale glides out with the lingering drip from the eaves. Your body has entered into a conversation it doesn't need to lead. Slow breathing feels different from thinking about breathing. The moment you notice it, it is already happening, like a tide that has been rising beneath your awareness. The muscles of your ribs expand without strain. The diaphragm sinks and lifts as if drawn by an invisible tide. This is how the parasympathetic nervous system steps forward, without fanfare, without rush. It is the side of your biology dedicated, not to fleeing or fighting, but to resting, repairing, and sustaining. When breath slows, signals travel along the vagus nerve, a long wandering pathway connecting brain to body. The message is simple: you are safe. Blood vessels respond by loosening their grip, letting blood move with greater ease. Heart rate finds a slower rhythm, but not an empty one. It becomes more variable. The beat-to-beat changes that mark a resilient heart. In this softness, the body's priorities shift. Digestion hums more fully. Immune cells move with less interference. Tissues repair without competing demands. You inhale through your nose, and the air feels cool at first, then warm as it slips down into the lungs. The nose, with its winding passages, slows and filters the air, adding a hint of resistance that naturally lengthens the draw. Longer inhales pull in more oxygen, which clings to hemoglobin in your blood, ready to be ferried to every quiet corner of your body. Exhaling, you feel a settling, as though the breath itself is a weight lowering gently onto the table of your mind. Carbon dioxide leaves in equal measure, its gentle buildup between breaths nudging blood vessels in the brain to widen, increasing circulation where thought rests. The exhale is not a collapse, it is a return, a folding into place. You notice how breathing and awareness share the same pace. As breath slows, thoughts follow, unhurried and fewer in number. They have more space between them, like stones in a river where water can flow softly around each one. There is no urgency to leap from one to the next. Instead, you watch them pass under the bridge of your attention. The rain offers a steady metronome, patter, pause, patter, pause. You match its tempo without calculation. In through the nose for 4 slow counts, out through the mouth for 6. This gentle extension of the exhale tips the balance toward calm. Scientists studying this rhythm have found that breathing at around 5 to 6 breaths per minute creates an entrainment, a synchronizing of breath, heart rate, and blood pressure in a way that fosters deep rest. You shift slightly under the blanket, your body remembering its own weight. The fire beside you sighs as wood settles into embers. The warmth along your side deepens the feeling of exhaling fully, as though your body could melt into the chair. This is the parasympathetic state in texture and temperature, warm, unguarded, and steady. As you continue breathing slowly, you sense small changes in the edges of yourself. A skin along your forehead smooths. Your jaw rests a little farther from your teeth. The muscles at the base of your skull release. These are the quiet responses of a body being told, again and again with each breath, that it is safe enough to let go. Your attention drifts to the way air fills the lower parts of your lungs. You imagine them as 2 unfolding gardens, each alveolus, tiny air sac opening to receive the exchange of gases. Oxygen moves into the blood. Carbon dioxide moves out, each molecule crossing the thin membrane like a traveler stepping from one shore to another. Millions of these exchanges occur every second, the smallest details of life carried out in perfect timing with the slow expansion and release of your breath. Breathing is one of the few processes you can both control and allow to happen without thinking. This dual nature makes it a bridge between mind and body. In slowing it consciously, you are guiding more than air. You are guiding chemistry, rhythm, and mood. The longer you stay here, the more the body takes over, continuing the slow rhythm without your instruction. The rain shifts slightly, tapping harder on one side of the roof then softening again. You adapt without noticing, your inhales and exhales bending like branches in the wind. There is no perfect pattern to maintain. The perfection is in the responsiveness. Just as the forest moves with the weather, you move with each breaths. Need dot with each exhale. Tension slides away, not in dramatic waves, but in small, almost invisible releases. The mind, which often clings to what has already passed, finds it easier to let go when the body leads the way. Breathing out becomes a quiet act of trust that what is no longer needed will leave, and what is meant to come will arrive in its own time. You remember that this rhythm is ancient. Long before language or cities, slow breathing was the body's way of signaling peace to itself. The same nerves, the same muscles, the same calming chemistry worked in those who rested by campfires or listened to rain against hide and wood. You are continuing a pattern as old as human breath itself. The cabin seems to listen with you. The walls hold the sound of the rain. The blanket holds the heat of your body. The air holds the faint scent of smoke and cedar. All of it meets your breathing in a shared tempo. A room-sized exhale dot as the minutes pass. You notice a soft heaviness in your limbs, the kind that comes when the body has stopped preparing for anything else to happen. Energy is now being spent not on readiness, but on repair. Cells turn to their quieter work, rebuilding tissue, balancing hormones, sweeping waste from the brain's fluid channels. Breathing is both the signal to begin and the fuel to keep it going. You let the next inhale rise naturally, as if the air were choosing you. The exhale leaves with the same ease, not pushed, not forced. Between the two, there is a moment of stillness, a tiny pause where nothing is moving in or out. This pause is where you feel the deepest quiet, a weightless second that seems to stretch longer than it should, then folds back into the next breath. The rain's rhythm is still with you, but now it seems farther away, like a song being played. In another room, your focus is inward, where the ocean of breath rolls in and out without shore. Each wave is small and even, and in its repetition, the mind has all it needs to rest dot in the soft dark of your closed eyes. Images begin to form, slow, unhurried pictures that seem to float on the tide of your breath. They are not dreams yet, but the light sketches of them. The slow breathing has prepared the canvas, and now the first colors begin to drift across. The next inhale is deeper without trying. The next exhale longer without effort. You have stopped measuring. The breath has become the measure. Somewhere beyond the breath and the rain, a faint rustle calls from the table beside you. The book waits, its pages holding the kind of words that read more like lullabies. You turn your head toward it, ready to let your breathing carry you through each line. You rest your palm on the floor and feel a faint vibration, a hum too soft to be sound and too steady to be imagined. It travels through wood into bone, and bone carries it to breath. Even after cutting and sanding, wood remains alive to change. Cell walls hold tiny chambers where water comes and goes. Lignin lends strength, cellulose gives structure, and both converse with the air. Grain runs like a river frozen into lines. When the tree stood, these were years layered in rings, each ring a ledger of weather drought written narrow, plenty written wide. Laid flat as floorboards, those years become direction. Your fingertips read the lines the way eyes read handwriting. You press your ear close. The cabin's small tectonics speak, a nail relaxing as heat deepens, a seam adjusting to humidity the rain has carried inside, the subfloor shifting by a thickness of a breath. Wood moves. It expands to meet kindness, contracts to store memory, and in the movement, it tells time without numbers dot inside the planks lie tracheids and vessels, the long tubes trees used to ferry water. Now they are dry roads, but they still map ascent, from root dark to needle light. You imagine sap rising, as it once did by capillary pull and evaporation's tug, An invisible rope climbing the trunk. Smell rises when you warm the spot with touch. Resin's ghost answers. Pine, citrus, a shade of smoke from fires long past. Olfaction takes its quick path to memory, and you see a stand of trees lit on one side by morning. A wind moves through them and arrives in your chest as breath. Materials. Keep company with places. A board is a map folded into itself. You think of years before the saw, roots among fungi trading sugars for minerals, bark reading insect footnotes and writing chemical replies, leaves converting photons into glucose, carbon into architecture. The tree took light and made shelter. Now the wood returns shelter to you, offering a platform that speaks evenly to your feet, a warmth that is not a flame, but a refusal to be cold. Your weight settles. Mechanoreceptors along your palm and thigh translate pressure into certainty. Deep touch tells the vagus nerve. Here is support. Here is contact. Here is a boundary wide enough to rest inside. The nervous system, reassured, sharpens its listening for quiet things. In that quiet, you hear what you first called a hum. It is the house breathing, the slow exhale up the flue, the tiny inhale under the door. If you tap a knuckle lightly and wait, the wood answers with a timbre set by density and length. You name it home. The sound travels and returns softer, as if the room had placed a hand on your shoulder. Light from the hearth lays amber bars between seams. In each bar dances an empire of dust, motes swirling on currents too fine to chart. Dust is autobiography. Shed skin, leaf fragments, mountain, ocean particles that have used the sky's road. The boards carry marks, constellations of dents where something heavy once rested. A scar like a comet's path, the soft oval where many heels have pivoted. Each mark is a verb. Sat, dropped, turned. You place your fingers on the oval and add another. To live is to leave weighted punctuation dot at the edge by the window. A hairline gap opens and closes with weather. This breathing seam prevents bigger breakage. You think of joints in your own body cartilage accepting load, synovial fluid smoothing shock, and see the kinship. Flexibility as durability. You spread the blanket aside and lie down, cheek to grain. Temperature evens where skin meets wood, a quiet treaty between your warmth and the board's slower heat. Your heartbeat meets the floor and returns, a mirrored pulse that suggests you are not alone in the work of rhythm. Your mind drifts backward, into forests older than your memory. You follow rings into decades, root paths braided with streams, mycelial threads bright as thoughts. In imagination, you stand inside the tree and look out through barked weather in languages of wind, and birds land and leave. Snow annotates branches with white. Lightning writes a fast sentence, healed over but legible in the archive. Even after felling, boards settle toward equilibrium with the room. Hygroscopic fibers trade moisture for peace, and the exchange writes faint creaks at night. You welcome, each as a lullaby, systems adjusting, stresses releasing, stability maintained by small negotiations. You notice how the floor speaks to posture. Its firmness invites the spine to lengthen rather than slump. When bones stack, muscles rest. Comfort becomes architecture. You roll one shoulder back and feel breath grow taller inside the chest, in the quiet. A thought unfurls. Every material. Around you is a record. Wood records climate. Stone records pressure. Glass records heat and cooling in its lack of crystals. Your tissues record habit. Tonight you are writing a chapter across fascia and floor alike, an entry about shelter, warmth, and pulse, about the way rain writes above while the tree writes below. The hum deepens as the fire settles to coal. Shadows lengthen and then fall silent. You lift your head and the floor cools quickly under the missing weight, remembering you by difference. When you sit up, the grain seems to flow toward the small table by the chair, as if the lines were a river and the table a bend where stories deposit. You follow that current. On the table waits a book, its cover plain, its pages edged a little rough from many openings. Paper is wood made into language, cellulose pressed into leaves that hold ink the way bark held rain. Somewhere within, a chapter is ready to meet. You're slow breathing with slower words. The floor under your feet adds its counsel. Stay, read. Let the tree speak another dialect. You place the book in your lap and rest one palm on the cover, as if greeting an old trunk before leaning your back against it. The board beneath answers with a small tick, a yes audible only because the room is this quiet. You feel carried by rings and grain, and fibers turn to page. Before you open to the ribbon, you listen once more to the floor's patient murmurs, and thank the trees that learned light until they became this warmth, this hum, this alphabet of lines under your skin. The gratitude is simple and unspoken. It travels downward like a root finding water, and upward like sap finding leaf, and finds you where you are. The grain seems to point toward the waiting book, as if the forest were guiding your hand. You lift the cover, and the quiet wood becomes paper, ready to whisper its pages into the night. You sit very still, and the stillness answers. At first, it feels like nothing, but then the nothing separates into layers. Your ears rest inside the room's hush, while another listening grows through your skin and bones. The quiet is not absence. It is attention. It holds you the way a lake holds a star, without ripple or need. Outside the cabin, the rain has thinned to a sift, a fine cloth shaking out the last drops. Needles answer with a lighter patter, and the roof gives cooling ticks. Between them lies a field of almost silence where smaller conversations happen. You sense them with the whole body, a pressure easing, a floorboard carrying a breath, your chest widening as the air grows light dot in the soil under the pines. Roots speak in sugars and signals. Mycorrhizal threads thin as thoughts bind tree. To tree, fungus to root hair. Carbon moves along those filaments like a night messenger. Warning chemicals travel ahead of insects. Water is shared where one has plenty and one is thirsty. Scientists call it a common mycelial network. You feel it as a calm competence beneath your feet, a steady pulse shaped like generosity. Not all night speech is chemical. Some rides the air as vibration, too low to name. Moths beat paper wings, beetles drum bark. Crickets bow their ridged instruments. Bats write can ultrasound far above hearing, yet your nerves register the texture shift as they pass the field briefly stitched, then open again when they turn away. Even the trees keep time. As wind thins, trunks lean back toward, center and unload their fibers. Lignin, that tough music of wood, releases tension strand by strand. A faint creak is the audible edge of a larger quieting. Inside the leaves, stomata close for the dark, and the plant's breath goes slow. Oxygen and carbon dance at a smaller party now. Sap continues its late work by capillary grace. Your heart joins the listening. Between beats, it hears the pressure. Curve in your vessels and makes tiny adjustments. Baroreceptors in the neck report like patient clerks. All is steady. All is well. With every exhale, your vagus nerve hums its long, unhurried note. The body's metronome accepts the night's tempo. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are joining a slower layer of it. You think of bioacoustics, the study of living sound, and realize you are inside its textbook, a page that writes itself. Each species shares the acoustic space the way neighbors share a table. Frogs take the lower band, birds the upper when morning comes, insects the fine silver between. It is called the acoustic niche hypothesis, a partitioning that lets messages carry without shouting. Tonight, with rain calming the stagehands, the script is simple and mercifully short. From the chimney, a column of warm air climbs, and with it a ribbon of sound you cannot quite name, soft turbulence, low and round. Put your hand to the mantle, and you feel it as a cat's purr put into stone. Bone conduction is another doorway for subtle messages. The skull is a fine listener. It ferries vibration to the inner ear, even when air rests quiet. Some nights, silence can feel like a test. Tonight, it feels like a host. That feeling has chemistry, lower cortisol, higher melatonin, a drift toward theta rhythms that lift images and set them down without weight. Your body diverts energy to repair microtears knit, fluids rinse channels in the brain, the glymphatic tide carrying away the day's debris. Rest has begun its quiet labor. You wonder how far the night listens back. Far enough, perhaps, to register your own tiny sounds. The small whistle at the end of an exhale, the fabric brushing the chair, the soft swallow when your mouth gathers warmth. You consider how predators once read those clues and how, in safe rooms like this, the same clues become lullabies. Information stripped of threat is music. Out among the pines, the undergrowth holds its breath and then returns to its tiny chores. Snails translate leaf to motion. A fox steps featherlight through fern, paw pads speaking against soil in syllables made of touch. A nightjar clicks once, rearranging the darkness. The sound folds quickly back into the quiet, like a thought that bows and leaves the room. You set your bare feet on the floor and feel the wood answer. The answer is not a creak. It is a tone. Every board has one, set by length, density, and attachment. You shift your weight until your own tone matches it. Resonance tuning a pair of instruments. Where the match holds, relaxation deepens, as if a locked cupboard had found the proper key. Inside your chest, the ribs widen like shutters opening to night air. Intercostal muscles slacken, and the diaphragm rises more slowly on each exhale. The nervous system checks its gates audit complete and opens them to drift. Your attention floats outward a little, then inward, then lands on the book by your hand. Paper quiets louder than silence because it promises a thread to follow. You imagine the forest hearing you. Perhaps your breath adds a faint swell to the room's pressure, barely measurable but real. Perhaps your heartbeat nudges the chair's fibers, which nudge the floor, which nudge a small pocket of air under the door. Perhaps the pine nearest the porch feels that pocket lift and fall against its lowest needles. A human tide tucked beneath the larger weather. From deeper in the soil, a delayed thunder arrives. Not sky sound, but root sound, the slow fracture, and settling of a buried branch, finishing its return to earth. Soil is an orchestra of small endings, and endings are a kind of listening. Microbes note changes in carbon and reply with enzymes. Ants revise tunnels. The ground never stops writing its palimpsest. A breeze gathers, travels, disperses. Wind. It touches the cabin. The walls murmur, the eaves sing a bar, and the door gives one soft syllable. The room is an instrument you happen to occupy. You become attentive, not as a task, but as a courtesy. The courtesy is returned. The rain pauses. All together. In the pause, you hear the shape of everything that has been sounding, the afterimage of the storm. It is like stepping into a room where friends have just laughed and left a brightness in the air. You sit within that brightness and feel your edges blur toward sleep. It feels like velvet laid lightly over the listening world. You lower your gaze to the open book. The page is a pale window. Letters sit like stones in a clear stream, read as much by rhythm as by sight. Words do not break the night. They enroll in it. Your eyes move. Your breath keeps time. And the cabin listens with you, a chorus of soft agreements that make the room wide. The quiet leans closer, the way a listener leans to catch the last gentle part of a story. You let a paragraph finish, and then close the book on the ribbon, not as an ending, but as a hinge. Your hand rests on the cover, and the floor returns one last warm tick. It feels like a nod you almost hear. You could blow out the candle now, or you could let it spend itself. The flame wavers and steadies, a small lantern signaling across a harbor. Everything in you has already turned toward sleep. The room understands and answers with patience. You decide to listen a little longer, to let the night listen back, until the space between the two kinds of listening is thin as silk. Then, when the silk finally melts, you will not notice its vanishing. You will already be where the forest sings without words, and rest completes its sentence. Just beyond the window, a low chorus gathers, the first shy notes of the forest's lullaby. You breathe once more, and the night breathes with you, waiting to sing you the rest. You wake inside a gentle brightness. With eyes still closed, you feel a lighter weight in the air, a soft cool at the tip of your nose, a hush that sounds like a smile. Morning has not stepped in. It has breathed in. A cabin holds a faint sweetness of damp cedar and resting ash, a recipe your body reads as finished sleep, even through your lids. Photons brush the retina and whisper to the master clock that night has completed its circle. In the pineal, melatonin bows and begins its descent. Cortisol, shy at first, lifts the limbs with a thin thread of readiness. It is not an alarm. It is a curtain rising, an invitation to wander back into waking. Your skin listens too. Tiny receptors. Notice the room's small temperature lift where the hearth gave off its last kindness. Outside, a bird tests the edges of sound, a tentative trill, a pause, a second note that stays. Dawn chorus is not a sudden choir. It is a hand placing pieces until music appears. You open your eyes. The ceiling holds a pale wash, wood grain, drawn in silver. The candle is a quiet stub. On the table, the book waits beneath its ribbon. Nearby, the empty cup remembers steam. You feel repaired because you stopped chasing anything. In the dark, slow cruise knit muscle, rinsed thought, polished mood. Sitting up, you let the blanket release your shape. Gravity greets you kindly, just enough for feet on floor to feel like yes. The plank answers with a small tone. Outside, a drop falls from a pine tip and lands with a syllable almost too soft to claim at the window. Condensation melts to transparency. Beyond the glass, branches lift damp green hands into early light. Stomata open along the needles, and the day's exchange begins. You do not need the terms. You feel the world resume its gentle arithmetic. Breath follows what you see. Inhale. Expands like sky through boughs. Exhale settles like mist to soil. The vagus hum remains, keeping peace with the drum of waking. Your heart explores a slightly quicker path, and then relaxes, confident the morning holds no sharp edges. You lift the latch. A ribbon of cool slides in, threaded with moss and wet bark, and your skin becomes a listening field. A thrush begins its fluted sentence. Insects add a silver seam you didn't hear at night at the stove. You fill the kettle and set it near the ember's last breath, and add kindling and one split log. Fire rehearses quietly. When the first thin tongue appears, you feel it as warmth before you see it as glow. While water gathers its whisper, you fold the blanket and place the book with its ribbon tidied. These acts are small and welcome. Order is not an argument with life. It is a way to preview the day as solvable. Each completed gesture returns a little energy from decision to renewal. Steam cones from the spout. You pour it over leaves that smell of field and flower. The cup warms your palms. Vessels open. Morning's first signal travels by heat and scent rather than noise. You drink slowly. Taste arrives in measured chords, bitter rounding to sweet, warmth rounding to glow. You carry the cup to the door. The hinge speaks its wooden vowel, and cool air folds around you as you step onto the porch. The forest looks cleaned and new. Drops bead on spider silk like notes on a staff. Somewhere, water continues its work, stitching a rill through moss. The soil's breath crosses your face like a cool cloth. You sit on the top step. Sky is the color of linen rinsed many times. A cloud walks slowly, transparent at the edges like thought becoming memory. The sun is still behind the trees, but its heralds arrive as warmth on your cheekbones and a brighter green in the needles. A squirrel advances along a branch, considers the gap, and takes it. The day's joints feel oiled. Plans, if any, arrive. Without clang. You could sweep the threshold, read a page, walk the path, or simply sit and let morning knit itself. Light continues its work beneath the skin. Photons tickle melanopsin cells and shift circadian gears toward day. The message is friendly. Digestion resumes, attention widens, mood leans toward possibility. You accept the counsel and keep the pace slow. There is no prize for sprinting. Into wakefulness, there is joy in gliding. The thrush pauses. A wren tries a thread of song, laughs, and tries again. Dew wicks into soil. Mist unspools. A spider revises the line the storm smudged. The forest reweaves. You sip and feel the cups. Heat reach your center like a lamp in a quiet room. Standing, your feet recall the grain beneath the wool. The floor inside will remember your return. The chair will keep the bowl of your back. The book will open where breath left a finger spacing the pages. The cabin has taught a language for rest you can carry. It begins with noticing, continues with breathing, and ends nowhere because it is away. You step inside and close the door softly. The candle's stub and the folded blanket look like both conclusion and invitation. You set the empty cup in the basin and run a thread of cool water. Your hands rinse the cup as if polishing a small moon. You dress without fuss. Cloth greets skin with clean friction, a modest current that charges rather than drains. You tie. Laces the familiar choreography, and the last knot sits like punctuation at the end of a soft sentence. When you stand, the posture you learned from the chair follows you upright. The day's first steps carry the cabin's rhythm inside them. Before you leave, you touch the table, the back of the chair, the doorframe. It is an inventory of gratitude, for wood that used to be wind, for fire that used to be sun, for water that used to be cloud, for sleep that used to be waking and will be again. The list completes itself as warmth under the STERNUM. You open the door once more. Sunlight finds an angle and slides between two branches, laying a narrow river across the threshold. You step through it. Light hesitates on your shoulder and goes with you a few paces, as if to be sure you have what you need. The path receives your feet with the same quiet it offered last night. Pine lifts its green arithmetic, Turpin's sketching column across your mind like a familiar hand. You walk with morning's small courage, the kind that merely continues. There will be work, conversations, and the occasional sharp thing asking for patience. The cabin has given you a way to meet them. Slow first, then sure dot at the bend, you look back. The window holds a square of dim gold where the hearth woke. The porch wears a necklace of drops. The door rests as though listening. You do not need a photograph. Your body has already taken one in scent and pressure, temperature and tone. You can return by closing your eyes and breathing once with intention. You begin along the path. Birds raise the volume by a degree. A breeze arrives bearing the day's first rumor of warmth. Your stride lengthens and then settles, choosing effortlessness. Over speed, the canopy becomes a green cathedral. The aisle is made of needles and light dot at the edge of the trees. The world opens field, low fog shredding, a sky enriched from pale to pearl. You pause between forest and day and rest a hand on your ribs to feel breath affirm your place in both. The cabin is behind you, yet its language is fluent inside you. The grammar of warm light, the syntax of slow breath, the punctuation of small, deliberate acts. You step into the field and feel dew leap to your shoes, cold and bright like a bell rung on the skin. You welcome it. It is the day's first clear word, and you answer with a wordless yes. Ahead, a road meanders toward whatever waits, and you are ready to meet it the way the forest meets weather listening first, then belonging. You go on, carrying morning like a shy flame cupped in both hands. The wind moves through grass and traveling. Sentences. Somewhere, a new room will open. A new chair will learn the bowl of your back, and a new quiet will wait for breath to name it. Until then, you keep the secret the cabin taught. Calm is not a place but a practice, a soft thing you make, one noticing at a time. You pause at the threshold of the day, breathing once more the slow, steady way the cabin taught you. Somewhere, ahead, a small door of quiet will open when you knock with your breath. You step forward, carrying the whisper of morning like a promise you can return to whenever you need.